Have you ever felt like you're wearing a mask, smiling when you want to scream, agreeing when your heart says no, pretending to be someone you're not, just to make it through the day? It's strange, isn't it? How being yourself, the one thing no one else can be, can sometimes feel like the most terrifying thing in the world. We live in a world full of noise, full of opinions, full of expectations. From the moment we're born, we're told who we should be. Be successful, be likable, be strong, be normal. And slowly, without even realizing it, we begin to build a self that is not entirely ours. We choose the safe path, say the right things, live a version of life that pleases others but leaves us quietly, painfully disconnected from ourselves. And yet, somewhere deep down, there's a small, persistent voice, a voice that whispers, "This isn't who you really are." But to answer that voice, to become your true self, that takes something far more rare than talent or intelligence. It takes courage, real courage, because to be yourself in a world that constantly pushes you to conform, that's not just difficult, that's a kind of rebellion. And rebellion, even a silent one, always comes with fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being misunderstood, fear of standing alone. Kierkegaard, a Danish philosopher, who many call the father of existentialism, understood this fear deeply. He believed that the greatest task in life is not simply to survive, or even to succeed, but to become your true self. Not the self society wants, not the self your family expects, but the self you are called to be. And becoming that self, he warned, would bring with it a deep, unavoidable anxiety. But he also believed something else, that in facing that anxiety, not escaping it, not numbing it, but standing in it, we begin to live with authenticity, with freedom, and with real meaning. Today, we're going to explore that journey, the fear of being ourselves, and the quiet, trembling courage it takes to become who we truly are. Because maybe, just maybe, your anxiety is not a sign that something is wrong with you, but a sign that you're standing at the edge of becoming. Kierkegaard lived in the 1800s. In a quiet corner of Copenhagen, Denmark, he walked alone through foggy streets, wrestling with questions most people spend a lifetime trying to avoid. Questions like, who am I really? What does it mean to live a meaningful life? What happens if I never become the person I was meant to be? He wasn't interested in systems or theories for their own sake. He didn't want to solve logic puzzles or define abstract concepts. What he wanted, what he was obsessed with, was you. The inner you, the real you, the self beneath the roles, beneath the routines, beneath the noise. He believed that most people never truly become themselves, not because they can't, but because it's frightening, because it means choosing. And choice brings risk, responsibility, and above all, anxiety. Kierkegaard called this the dizziness of freedom. He said that when we finally realize we are free, that no one else can live our life for us, that no path is guaranteed, that we alone are responsible for who we become, we feel a kind of existential vertigo. It's like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing you could jump not because you want to, but because you can. That is anxiety. Not just fear of failure, but fear of possibility. Most people, Kierkegaard believed, run from that feeling. They hide in the crowd. They become what others expect. They take refuge in routines, in roles, in social norms. And for a while, that might feel safe. But deep down, the self they were meant to become begins to wither. You can't become yourself by copying others. You can't become yourself by avoiding the discomfort of choice. You must step into it fully. And that means stepping into anxiety. But here's the key. For Kierkegaard, anxiety is not the enemy. It is a signal. It is the birth cry of the self. It tells us we are on the edge of becoming. It tells us we are alive. When you feel anxious because you're about to do something new, because you're finally speaking your truth, because you're letting go of who the world wants you to be, that anxiety is sacred. It means you're not just existing, you're beginning to live. So Kierkegaard invites us to ask, will you choose the easy life of imitation, or the hard, trembling path of authenticity? Will you hide behind comfort, or face the discomfort that comes with growing into your truth? And will you dare to become yourself, not just once, but again and again, with every real, honest choice you make? Because to be truly human, he believed, is not to arrive at a perfect version of yourself, but to keep becoming, to keep choosing, to keep standing in the anxiety of freedom and saying, yes, this is me. There's a man who wakes up every day and puts on a suit. He works at a company where he's respected, maybe even admired. He smiles at meetings. He checks every box. He does what's expected. But on the subway ride home, he sometimes stares at the floor and wonders, whose life am I living? Years ago, he dreamed of becoming a writer, not for fame, but because words made him feel alive. But someone once told him that writing doesn't pay the bills. And little by little, that version of him disappeared. Now he's successful. But at night, when the world goes quiet, a voice whispers, this isn't me. And he tries not to hear it. There's a woman in her late 20s, scrolling through photos of people she doesn't even know. People with perfect bodies, perfect careers, perfect love stories. She's not unhappy. She has friends, a decent job. She smiles in her posts, but she feels hollow inside, because every part of her life feels like a performance. Even her laughter feels rehearsed. She wants to speak honestly, to say she's confused, that she's scared, that she sometimes feels completely lost. But what if people pull away? What if no one understands? What if being real means being alone? So instead, she posts another filtered smile, another caption that doesn't quite say what she really means. And she tells herself, this is just how it is. There's a teenager who knows he doesn't believe what his family believes. He knows he doesn't fit into the identity they've chosen for him. He wants to speak up, but the weight of tradition, the fear of rejection, the pressure to be good, all pressed down on his chest like a stone. He says nothing. He nods when he disagrees. He stays silent when his heart wants to scream. Because sometimes, the pain of pretending feels safer than the risk of being real. And maybe there's you. Maybe you felt this too, the quiet ache of not living as yourself. The tension between who you are and who the world expects you to be. Maybe you've made choices you didn't fully choose. Maybe you stayed silent when your soul needed to speak. Maybe you've smiled through pain just to keep the peace. And if you have, you're not alone. Kierkegaard saw this in the 19th century. He called it the despair of not becoming oneself. It's not loud. It doesn't always look like suffering, but it eats away at the soul. Because deep down you know, you were meant for more than this. Not more success, not more approval, more truth, more you. But truth costs something, and the price is fear. The price is standing alone. The price is being misunderstood. And so, most people trade their truth for comfort, their real voice for applause, their identity for acceptance. They choose the crowd over themselves. But here's the quiet tragedy. You can belong to the world, or you can belong to yourself, but not both. And at some point, you have to choose. So why is it so hard to be ourselves? Kierkegaard believed it all comes down to this. We are free, and that freedom terrifies us. Freedom means choice, and choice means responsibility. There's no one to blame, no one to hide behind. You can't say, I was just doing what I was told. Not if you want to live authentically. That's where anxiety enters. Anxiety, to Kierkegaard, isn't just stress or fear. It's the dizziness of possibility. The overwhelming realization that you and only you must decide who you are. It's standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing you could jump and feeling both drawn and terrified. You could choose comfort. You could choose the crowd. You could choose not to choose. But that, too, is a choice not to become. To become yourself, you must pass through anxiety, not avoid it, not numb it, not run, but walk through it with open eyes. This is why Kierkegaard says, "He who wills to be himself must suffer," because the journey to your true self will cost you your false self. It will cost you your masks. It will cost you certainty, safety, applause. It will feel like losing, but it's actually becoming. Kierkegaard gives us the image of the knight of faith. This is not a perfect person, not someone without fear, but someone who walks forward despite fear. Someone who, even when nothing makes sense, chooses to stand alone, as a single individual before the universe. He called this being a single individual before God, not religious in the institutional sense, but in the raw, trembling, existential sense, standing fully exposed, without excuses, without borrowed identities, just you and your freedom, your soul, your choice. That's the leap of faith. Not faith in doctrine, but in existence itself. In the idea that even if no one understands you, even if your path is lonely, even if your truth costs you everything, you will still be you. That kind of leap isn't logical. It isn't rational. It's personal. It's terrifying. And it's real. Think of the man in the office, the woman behind the smile, the teenager lost in silence. Each of them stands at the edge of becoming. Each of them feels the anxiety. Each of them must decide, will they take the leap or turn back into comfort, into safety, into someone else's life? Kierkegaard doesn't promise it will be easy. He says it will hurt, but it will also heal. Because to live any other way is not to live at all, but only to act, to perform, to echo. And deep down, you know that's not enough. So how do we begin? How do we move from knowing who we are to actually living as that person? You don't need to make a dramatic change. You don't need to quit your job or abandon your life overnight. That's not courage. That's escape. Real courage is quieter. It happens in moments. Like when you say no to something that doesn't align with your values, even if everyone else says yes. Like when you speak honestly, instead of saying what's expected. Like when you sit with your anxiety, instead of rushing to distract yourself. Start small, because the self isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in choices, one honest moment at a time. Here are a few places you might begin. Speak one truth today, even if your voice shakes. Say what you really feel, not to be confrontational, but to stop betraying yourself. Choose something you want, not because it's trendy, safe, or approved, but because you want it. Even if it's just what book you read, what music you listen to, how you spend your evening. Pause when you feel anxious. Instead of fleeing, try to feel it. Breathe. Ask yourself, what choice is trying to be born here? Anxiety isn't a warning that something is wrong. It's often a sign that something real is asking to emerge. Remember Kierkegaard's words. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, and that freedom is sacred. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be willing to take one step toward your truth, then another. You don't become yourself all at once. You grow into it. You unfold. And the more you unfold, the more your life begins to feel real, not perfect, not easy, but yours. So maybe today, you try just one thing. Say what you really mean. Make a decision only you can make. Let someone see the version of you that isn't polished or pleasing. It will be uncomfortable. It may be messy, but it will be yours. And that's where meaning lies. Because in a world obsessed with fitting in, choosing to be yourself is the bravest, most radical thing you can do.